In northern Chile sits the Atacama Desert. The landscape is dry enough that NASA uses this exact terrain to test their Mars rovers. Satellite imagery of this expanse reveals massive mountains of thousands of tons of discarded clothing stretching across the sand. This diagram compares the global population to the scale of annual garment production. Every year, the industry manufactures between 100 and 150 billion items, roughly 14 brand new garments for every person on Earth. Despite this massive volume, the average piece of clothing is worn only 7 to 10 times before it is thrown away. This rapid life cycle, from factory floor to desert grave, is the core output of a highly profitable, deliberately engineered system known as fast fashion. This model began in Spain in 1975. Amancio Ortega, the founder of Zara, replaced the traditional 2-season fashion calendar with 52 weekly micro-seasons, ensuring that new designs reach store shelves in just 15 days. Modern companies like Shein have digitized this speed. Using software to analyze search data and social media trends in real time, they add up to 10,000 new styles to their catalog every single day. To maintain this pace, brands heavily fund social media hauls to trigger dopamine hits and manufacture a culture where repeating an outfit is viewed as a social mistake. This relies on a 1932 concept called artificial obsolescence, the practice of designing products to feel culturally outdated long before the material actually wears out. To sustain this rapid cycle of buying and discarding, companies had to lower the price of materials, passing the true cost of production onto the planet. The physical cost begins with water. A single cotton t-shirt requires 2,700 liters of water to produce, enough to sustain one person's drinking needs for 2.5 years. In Central Asia, diverting water for cotton farming completely evaporated the Aral Sea. What was once the world's 4th largest lake is now a desert where rusted ships sit on dry sand. Beyond water consumption, the manufacturing process relies on a heavy volume of toxic chemical dyes. Factories and export hubs like Tirupur dump these chemicals directly into local rivers, turning once clean water sources into toxic, barren sewers. To meet the demand for cheap prices, 60% of modern clothing is now made from fossil fuel-derived plastics like polyester and nylon. Washing these synthetic clothes releases millions of microplastics that bypass water filtration. Once in the ocean, these fragments enter the food chain, where they are consumed by marine life and eventually ingested by humans. Researchers have now documented these microplastics inside human blood, livers, and the placentas of unborn babies. The fast fashion production line drains critical water supplies while pumping toxins and microplastics back into the ecosystem and our bodies. When these clothes are discarded, the waste does not disappear. Massive cargo ships export millions of tons of unsold or briefly used clothing to developing nations under the guise of recycling. Markets like Cantamonto in Ghana are flooded with garments weekly, but 40% are of such poor quality they are immediately dumped onto local beaches. Because the majority of these garments are synthetic plastics, they will not decompose for centuries. Burning the waste to clear space only releases carcinogenic smoke into the air. This relentless cycle of manufacturing, shipping, and burning accounts for 8 to 10% of total global carbon emissions. The supply chain functions as a loop, extracting resources from the earth only to return them as permanent toxic plastic mountains in places like the Atacama and Ghana. Systemic change is beginning. France has introduced an anti-fast fashion surcharge, and the EU is developing a digital product passport to track the environmental history of every garment. On an individual level, the 30 wears test serves as a tool to short-circuit impulse buying. Before you buy, ask if you will actually wear that item 30 times. Breaking the cycle also means normalizing outfit repeating and repairing older garments rather than replacing them. This diagram ranks fabrics by their environmental footprint. Tier C contains the synthetic plastics that shed microplastics, while tiers B and A consist of natural options like organic cotton and silk. At the top of the hierarchy are tier S materials like organic hemp. It requires almost no water, needs 0 pesticides, and naturally regenerates the soil. Dismantling this cycle requires recognizing the true cost of a cheap price tag and choosing long-term planetary health over a manufactured dopamine hit.